Welcome to It's All About the Questions, where learning to ask the right questions can help you achieve lifelong success. Now, here to help you ask all the right questions is award-winning author, international speaker, and business strategist, Laura Stewart.
Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone, and welcome to the show this week. I'm having fun with my graphics, trying to figure out how to do fades and all that other stuff, but I'm still not perfect at it. But you know what? That's half the fun, is learning and experiencing. And I just realized that I had last week pronounced my wonderful media producer who created those graphics, the flowing in graphics with the music in it, incorrectly. It's Josh. I said it was Josh Battybar, and it's Josh Beattybar. So Josh, I just corrected that for you everywhere and everybody. He's just truly wonderful to work with and helps make the recordings of this show look really, really wonderful. And that's really what helps a lot of different things, right? Making things look like they flow, that they reflect who you are as a person and what you stand for as a brand. This show, for me, is very much who I am, a person who likes to ask questions, a person who likes to really have awesome conversations with people from all around the world that I meet, that I want to introduce you to because they've shifted my thinking in one thing or another, or they've made me laugh or smile, or at the end of the day made me go, that's a different way of looking at that. And I love looking at things differently. And I love helping people grow their businesses, which is what I do when I'm not doing this show. I do strategy work and different things. And a big part of growing any business, growing your brand, is learning how to market your business and your brand to your clients, or the clients that you'd like to have, to consistently help them with the solutions that you have for them. But for a lot of people, marketing feels like rocket science. It feels like only the guys wearing the capes could possibly, and gals, could possibly help you figure out how to market your brands, and that you need a massive pocketbook to do that. And I'm here to tell you today that that is not true in every situation. But learning how to figure those things out, how to create your own marketing strategy, how to do the things that are right for your business, for your why, and for your prospective clients' why, is what it's all about. So today I've got a great guest, another guest that I met at Steve Olsher's Virtual New Media Summit the other month, where I was an icon of influence for my show. And I just loved him so much. I'm like, you have to come on the show. So he is here today. My guest today is James Adam, and he is one of the founders of 33% Marketing, and he is out of the UK. So I'm just going to bring him on screen right now. And James, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. Great to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here.
Yeah, likewise. I'm very excited. I'm looking forward to having a good conversation.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And before we even get started, you just need to tell everybody about what's going on behind you, because every time I talk to you on camera, I'm like, I see something different.
It's become a bit of a process, really. Ever since we all got sent home and we're all working from home now, I started thinking about what was behind me loads more. Like, I'd never bothered about that before. And then I thought, do you know what? I've got a lot of Lego. I have a lot of Lego. And I thought, I'm going to try and have a constantly changing background diorama. So what you can see currently is Hogwarts to one side and my Ninjago city to the other side. So that is what I've got on offer at the moment.
And are they made out? What are they made out of?
It's all Lego.
It's all Lego.
It's all Lego. Yeah. It's all Lego. That's all. Yeah. If you could see the rest of this room, it's chaos, but mostly all Lego as well.
Now, let's talk about marketing around Legos. When I was a little kid, Legos first came out, right? Nobody had ever heard of them before, and they first came out, and they weren't very expensive to buy, and there were no Legos of Star Wars. Well, when I was very, very young. There was no Star Wars, but it was in the early 70s when I went to the movie theater and saw it, right? So they had the Death Star, they have the TIE fighters now, they've got Hogwarts Castle, they've got all these villages that they've licensed and branded. But back then it was just, a box of bricks that you kind of could do some stuff with. They've developed their brand into having a theme park, into Lego kits selling for thousands upon thousands of dollars. Can you talk to that with me as like an entry to our conversation about marketing? I mean, you've worked with brands like Hasbro and North Face, and now you focus on, the smaller businesses. So start there.
Yeah. I mean, they're a classic example of that, of doubling down on who your perfect customer is, I suppose. So they went through when I was little, it was all sets, cars, trains, spaceships, all sorts of stuff like that. No, there was no licensed stuff at all, and it was just all we played with. We just, I always loved Lego, but they went through a period of time which a lot of people, everyone, all AFOLs, adult fans of Lego, have this time they call their dark age, which is the period of time where you didn't buy or play with Lego, which is usually when you stop being a child and start being a sensible grown-up, and you realize that that's really not something you should be doing anymore. And Lego had this big problem where all those people stopped, and they stopped innovating. They stopped coming up with cool new designs for things, and a lot of their stuff started to get pretty boring. And as you can see, a period of time where the Lego sets are just not interesting at all, and they really struggled during that period of time. And that's actually when they brought in some of their tools for business, which is the Lego Serious Play, which is something else that I use in work. But it was only when they then thought, okay, licensing is what we need. So they got Star Wars, they got Harry Potter, they got Indiana Jones, they got all those kind of things in early doors. And they doubled down on those adult fans. They accepted the fact that grown-ups were buying, that Harry Potter castle is not being marketed at children at the price point that it's marketed at. So they're accepting that these, and you look at the boxes now, the brand is, they're black boxes. They're very serious. They're designed to look like something that's not a toy, that's an adult executive toy that you might buy. And, and certainly the reason I love it is because, I love Lego is because of that, the sense of a sort of purpose that you get when you're working through a process of building a Lego model. When sometimes the world seems a bit out of control, following an instruction manual seems quite appealing. But then at the same time, you can use it creatively as well. So I just think what they've done with their marketing and focusing on who their perfect customer is, and those people that are going to spend a lot of money, and the people that have then got kids, and then they're going to then ultimately, I'm a marketing tool for Lego because I make my kids love it as well, and that's how that cycle works. So, and they've just really nailed who their perfect customer is, and then just kept making sure they got as much out of them as possible.
So they have, I think of Lego, and I think of they have two perfect customers. They have the child who the parent perhaps grew up with Legos and wants to introduce their child to Legos. So they have those basic kits to get them started. And then they've got the adult child that wants to play. But at the end of the day, their avatar, their perfect client is child, right? Whether it's a child, or whether it's an adult child, their brand, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm struggling with my own branding and marketing and things like that. I see their brand as the child within.
Absolutely. I think it's that, and it's the creative is part of the process as well. Okay. I think that's something that they talk about, rebuild the world. They talk about this process of building things together, and that side of things as well. So I think there is kind of, it's all about play. It's all about, even the business tools that they offer, or that their partners offer, are built around learning through play. Their education stuff is about learning through play. So that everything that they have is about, and that's what it is as an adult or a child, as you say, whatever it is, it's about finding that inner child. And we see that when we do workshops with people. You get a group of people, 15 or so, quite serious, sometimes people that sit down and think, I'm playing with Lego, this is something that kids do. And it doesn't take very long before they start fiddling about with stuff and putting things together in interesting ways and twiddling with little things that tie onto each other and stuff like that. And it's amazing how there is that. Everyone has that inside them. Even no matter how serious and how grown up and how sensible you think you are, inside there somewhere is that person that loves to play. And I think that's something that, they capitalize on that. And it's something that I think that everyone can use to get more out of that inner creative from themselves and find that inner child.
Is marketing kind of like marketing for your own business? Is that like trying to find your own inner child around your business?
I think that's the thing for me, is that marketing, when we talk about it, is we started talking about Lego and now we're talking about marketing. And I can imagine everyone's going, oh, marketing, that's, yuck. No one likes that.
But I feel like Lego found their own inner child, but they also can afford to pay major people to help them figure that out. Yeah, but that's the thing. I guess that's, it brings us around to why I love marketing, because it should be fun. Like what marketing is at its core is telling people about this amazing thing that you have. Like, so this business you started, this business that you work for, this service that you offer, all that marketing is doing is you telling people about it. So if you love what you do, if you're passionate about the thing that you have to offer, then telling people about it shouldn't be that scary. It shouldn't be that hard. And ultimately, if you can play with that and you can have fun with that and you can make it into a game or into something that is enjoyable, then I think you can be incredibly successful at it. But I think so many people get in their own heads about the tactics, about the how, and should I be on this platform? Should I be on that platform? I need to be everywhere doing all these different things and worrying about algorithms and all this other stuff, that they completely forget what it is at its heart. And that is you just telling people passionately about your amazing business. And that's the bit that I think people get disconnected with. All right. My favorite question is why, and I know you love the question why. So why is it that people get so wrapped up in the minutia and can actually get paralyzed with trying to take a step forward with anything around marketing?
The world wants you to do that, doesn't it? I mean, there's a number of different ways that can happen. I think there's, I run a marketing agency. One of our jobs is to make marketing sound difficult. So you pay us to do that thing. That was for many years, that's what we did. And that is, one of the things I like least about that industry is that's kind of the way it works. It's the same in a lot of professional services. Lawyers do it, doctors do it. A lot of these things are built on the premise that if I make it sound complicated enough, you won't want to do it yourself, and you'll get something, you'll pay us to do it for you. But there's also just so much. Social media is so responsible for it as well, but so many different things shouting at you saying, you need to be over here doing this thing. You should be on Clubhouse. You should be thinking about this platform. What are you doing on Reddit? Have you got your Instagram stories right? What about your Instagram reels? Are you doing this thing? Are you doing that thing? What's your SEO like? Have you checked out the latest algorithm on LinkedIn? Are you posting enough? Have you commented enough people?
You realize you're in my head right now.
Yeah. But that's what it is. But the world is just, and that's just like one bit of it. That's just like you're online. If you start thinking offline, and if you're a retail business and you're worrying about all this other stuff, and then most of the people that we're working with, you're also running an actual business. You're doing your operations, your HR, you're all these other things as well. And you can see why people just go, oh God, that sounds just too hard. I'll put that in a box and deal with that later, and not bother doing it. But I think that's why it seems so complicated, because people are just getting, they're just listening to too many other people saying you should be doing this and you should be doing that.
That voice in your head from the outside world definitely sways a lot.
Yeah, I think, but it's both, isn't it? And I feel like it all the time as well. I always feel like I should be doing more. I need to be over here doing this thing, and I should be over there doing that thing. And and then you look at other people and you compare yourself. You can't help it, can you? You can't help but compare yourself to what other people are doing, and feel bad about yourself. And then you think, oh no, I can't do that because I won't be as good at it as somebody else. But the truth is, you just kind of, it's all because people have forgotten what it was at its very heart, which is just doing it. Just go out and share and and don't worry as much about whether you're getting the algorithm right, because, and you've talked about it on previous episodes as well, that it's about consistently doing something, even if that something isn't perfectly optimized. Don't worry about that, because I think that's what people get in their heads about. If I'm going to do this thing, I need to make sure it's absolutely perfectly optimized. If I'm going to record a podcast, I need to make sure the audio is absolutely perfect every time. When in truth, just doing something consistently, just telling people, just posting on Facebook consistently to an audience that you recognize that loves what you do, is going to get you way further than worrying about the little details of your SEO or your metadata or all those kind of things.
Thank you for that.
Sorry.
I'm laughing because I've been struggling the last 3-4 weeks, not only because of my hand, but because of the sound-induced vertigo. And I hit like a depression wall, and I haven't posted to podcast 3 weeks worth of shows. And I sit here, and then it like gets harder and harder to post them, because I'm like, well, I haven't posted. What's going to happen when I post? Is somebody going to comment that I haven't posted? Have I lost listeners? And I know I haven't, based on rankings and different things like that. But, I go negative with I'm not being consistent, and I tell other people to be consistent. And then here I am, I got paralyzed. And then I thought about it. Well, what about people who during COVID had to maybe close their doors for their business? And they maybe now are beginning to think, okay, I can reopen my restaurant. I can reopen my retail store, or, I can go back to work because I had to stop working because my kids were home and my husband was home, and I just couldn't do my job while I was doing these 10 other jobs I have around the family. And I went, what am I saying to them by me saying, well, you can't restart? That once you stop, that's it, you're done. And I'm curious your thoughts on that, James, right? I'm living it. I'm always the first person on my show. I just, whatever I'm going through, I'm going to say it. If I've got a fear, if I've got a worry, I'm going to express it to my guests, because I guarantee that there's a bunch of my listeners out there that are going through the same thing. What if? Yeah. I have a friend who had to stop business for 3 months. They got COVID so bad, they don't even remember being in the hospital.
Wow.
Until all of a sudden they woke up. They discovered they had been on a ventilator and, had been in that knocked out twilight state that they put you in when you're on a ventilator. And he had to relearn how to walk and to talk and feed himself after COVID.
Wow.
Right now, he's not so much worried about getting his business back restarted, but he literally had to stop. So what do you say to that, to people?
I think that, you're right there. We've all been in that place where you've done something and then you haven't done it for a while and you feel a little bit like, well, but I always, with everything, with thinking about your customers, with everything to do with marketing, I always just encourage people to think about your closest friend. Think about a member of your family or somebody like that. And we've all been in that position where you think, oh, flipping it, I haven't texted my mum for a week, or I haven't sent a message to my friend for a little while. And you sit there and you think, oh, it's going to be a bit awkward the next time I do, because I haven't been as good a friend as I should have been. But in the end, you do send that message to them. And they don't say, oh, where have you been? They welcome you, because that's what friends do. And that's the truth. That's what it's like with your customers, with people that you work with, is that when you do show back up again, even if you haven't shown up for a couple of weeks, even if you haven't posted in a certain place for a certain amount of time, when you do show up, if you're genuine and honest and authentic, then you will be welcomed. That's what, in my experience, that's always the way the world works. So if your doors have been closed for a period of time and you share why, and we've got this, a couple of weeks from now, the 12th of April over here, the shops are going to be back open again. People are going to be outside. So businesses are thinking about, okay, how do we get people back? How do we get people back in again? And but there's this demand. People want to help. I think that's the thing that people sometimes forget, is that customers want to be customers. People want to go to shops. People want to support businesses, especially small independent businesses. So if you haven't been talking to people for a while, just talk to them. Just put yourself out there and share your truth, your true story of what's going on for you. And I think that that's what it's all about. It's all about connection, because that's what you haven't had in all this time, buying off Amazon, buying online, buying, having Deliveroo delivered to you or whatever else. There's no connection there, is there? And that's what I think people are craving. So I would just say, anybody that, if you feel like you haven't shown up for a while, don't worry, just show up and you will be welcomed back.
Does it have to be video? Does it have to be slick graphics? Because it seems like everybody and their brother is promoting, you must be on video. You must have really cool graphics. Is that what really needs to happen?
I mean, I love cool graphics. There's no getting around that. It's nice to see. And I think you do. There is a judgment that you make when you see a quality graphic, when you see a logo looks good. There is a judgment that you make. But the truth is, when you talk about a brand, and we have this conversation all the time about branding, and you talk to people about, I'm a branding agency. What you do is you design logos. That's not the same thing. But people think about that as being more important than the values that you have, than everything about the detail of your business. When the truth is, when you ask someone about a restaurant, they talk about, the food is amazing, the service is fantastic, it looks great inside, the people are so friendly, they make this pasta and it's absolutely incredible, and that is your brand. That's what makes you special. That's the thing that people remember. If you ask that same person what color their logo was, I bet 9 times out of 10 they couldn't probably tell you, because it's not as important as nailing that other stuff as well. And I think that's sometimes the distraction, that with marketing comes this idea that I need to focus on making my website look amazing, or making my graphics look fantastic, or making my my audio quality look absolutely beyond reproach, when in truth there's that detail of your business, of your product, of your service. And if you get that right, then word of mouth and everything else will do so much of the work for you.
Okay. So that's the messaging part.
Absolutely.
All right. I'm going to go in a very different direction to talk about messaging. All right. Because there are very few people I can do this conversation with. Probably you, Mark Asquith, a couple of other people that I know. All right. Let's talk Superman.
Always happy to talk Superman.
Okay. I know you're a big Superman fan. I grew up with like the original Superman, black and white and all of that stuff.
Nice.
Superman's messaging has always been about hope, that no matter how bad you think the situation is, that you can overcome it, that good will always win out over evil, even when it seems like the darkest time, that you're always going to be rescued or whatever. But it's very clear messaging. And then all of a sudden, Zack Snyder comes in. And I think it was Man of Steel, when they rebooted the whole franchise. And all of a sudden, Superman kills. He felt he didn't have any other option, that if he did not kill the evil person, that he could see what would happen to these really good people in the world. That's a major pivot on messaging. And if somebody's willing, we can even go into Star Trek, right? When J.J. Abrams took over and he created the alternate timeline with the Romulans and the mining ship and brought Spock from the original into the new. And by the way, I do love the new series, as long as I put aside my preconceived notions of what the world should look like and the timeline should look like. But again, these are massive shifts in messaging that have completely changed sort of who follows the things. So if we use Superman as this idea of messaging, What does that look like to you? Because you're a super geek like me, right? It just
Guilty as
makes no
charged.
sense to me. I don't watch the Justice League, the Superman movies. Wonder Woman finally brought hope back in.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it comes back to this idea of, and I think this is, fans are guilty of this. Everyone's got their own version of the thing that they love the most, and that's their version of the thing, and that's the thing. For me, Superman is dorky Superman. He's Clark Kent first. That's who he is. It's about, as you said, it's about hope. He's a person, and he's always been my favorite superhero because of that light where Batman is dark and broody and miserable and stuff. And whilst I'm all for take the Snyderverse, take that and do that story. And whilst it's not what I would have done with Superman, that's not my Superman. I respect the idea of taking it in a certain direction, but I feel like that is chasing the general public demand of dark, broody, everything's got to be miserable, everything needs to be serious. When was the last time a superhero movie won an Oscar? It doesn't happen because they're not dark and serious and miserable until the Joker comes along. You make a dark, serious, miserable movie, bingo. That's the ticket.
I could not watch the last Joker at all. I wanted to throw up. I just couldn't watch it. So they've lost me now, but I'm obviously not their audience.
No, but I think that's the thing, is that you're taking a property that traditionally is, targeted at a different audience, and you're trying to get somebody else. And I suppose in a way that is something that we sort of recommend, because you're saying, right, I'm going to target this audience because I think there's more of those people. And in doing so, there's a danger that I might alienate some of the other people. And they did. And people like you and me, who that's not their Superman, that's not your version of whatever it might be. And it could be anything. And it happens with the product. You could say, my business, I want to target these types of people. And in doing so, you might alienate some other people. And that is it's a balance you've got to weigh up. And sometimes that's the right thing to do, because that's when people always talk about niching down and focusing on the kind of that small target market. And we had that to some extent with my agency, where we were trying to think about who we wanted to target, and people would always say, oh yeah, but we don't want to turn down work, we don't want to let this other work go away. But in truth, the solution is you do want to do that, and you do need to focus in. But I think that there is a danger of losing when you chase the thing that you think is the big thing. When you go out thinking, oh yeah, but look over there, there's that big, it's like the Aesop's fable, the dog who's looking into the water, he's holding a bone in his mouth, and he sees the reflection of the other dog. It's got the bigger bone, so he chucks his bone to one side, jumps in after the dog with the big bone, and then loses all the bones. And that can happen when you think you've seen some big thing over here, and you go chasing after that, and you end up with nothing. And I think that in a way is what we're talking about here with the Superman analogy, which is that you're chasing the dark, broody kind of general group of people that love dark, broody movies. And then I think in doing so, alienate the people that have loved Superman for 80 years, the people that have, been a fan of that hopeful message that, that's what we want.
Can a pivot like that be successful? I mean, as you were talking, and I'm really curious which Superman and which Star Wars and Star Trek and stuff you like, because there's the original Star Wars, and then there's the second iteration that just went in really strange places. But in the United States, JCPenney and Sears, two big department store companies. Are you familiar with them?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So Sears owned the retail market for 100 years, right? Everybody had the Sears catalog. I mean, even the TV series MASH. In Korea, they got the Sears catalog and they passed it from person to person, and they ordered items that got delivered. Beds, this, that, coats, everything, right? When the market shifted back, then they created the retail thing, and they were big in retail. And then all of a sudden it went back to this online thing, and Sears was unable to make the pivot. JCPenney, a new head came in and decided that their client base was no longer the middle-aged woman buying clothes for herself and for her children and her husband, and decided that it was tweens was their market, and they went cheaper. And everybody's at JCPenney seems to be like, what happened? Why is our business suffering? These companies haven't made successful pivots. And, Superman makes this pivot. Can you ever successfully do that?
I think there are ways of doing it successfully, but generally only if it's done for the right reasons. I think people, in this crazy, COVID world, businesses have had to make pivots. If you're a retailer, if you're a restaurant, they've made a pivot to an online delivery or to something like that. They've pivoted the way their business works, but they probably haven't pivoted their customer, who their ideal customer is, who their perfect person to work with is, because the truth is that doesn't change as much. And we see this all the time where people will come to us and say, we really want to tap into that millennial market. We want to get hold of, we want to get more in front of these other people. And we're like, well, but you're a high-end hotel who's got an amazing collection of quite wealthy older customers. You haven't got all of them, so maybe you should just not worry about trying to appeal to millennials, and you should focus on those people. Double down on that already really well tapped into audience you've got. And I think that's usually when these things happen, when someone has this great idea of going after this promised land, this idea of something that's over there that they could potentially tap into, instead of focusing on what makes you special, focusing on who your audience is, the people that have been supporting you for all that time. And it's not to say you can't grow it, and it's not to say you can't bring in separate products or sub-brands or things that could appeal to those people. And that's often a smart way to go about it, because you bring in a sub-brand, you can target a different audience. And, and that's how we always suggest you do that, is if you want to bring in a new avatar, if you want to bring in a new ideal customer, then do that, but market to them specifically, and not necessarily at the expense of completely alienating the people that have been with you and supporting you all the time before that. And I think I think a pivot can work, but I think only if it's done with with the customer at its heart, rather than with a board director that's just decided that they like the idea of targeting tweens or some random audience that they just think, yeah, that sounds like a good place to go. Let's go and get some more of them. They've got some money.
This thought went through my head when you were talking about that, of when we first started talking about how do you decide, where you market and what you do, and if you haven't marketed in a while. And what popped into my head was this idea, James, of, are we listening to everybody else's marketing telling us what we should be marketing versus listening to ourselves and our own brand and our clients? And is that what the essence of some of what you were saying was around that we can be swayed that we have to go after the millennials, but why, if that's not really our success model?
Yeah, I think it's so easy to be distracted by the shiny new thing, the possible opportunity or the potential audience that might be over there. It's so easy to be drawn in by, that someone's doing this on Instagram, so that's probably a good thing to do, so I should probably go off and do that. But the truth is, and it's this analogy we always use, which is that if you really, really know who your customer is, if you're really inside their head, then they are like a good friend, and you don't think about, when you go to text your close friend, you go to send a WhatsApp to a family member or something like that, you don't think about it that much. You don't get your text signed off by several people. You don't get your images approved by anyone else. You see a funny picture, you share it. You know they're going to love it. You see a product you think's interesting, you share it. You know that they're going to love it. And if you get to that point, that level of sort of intimacy with your ideal customer, where you're right inside their brain, that's how it works. And you don't get distracted by all these other things telling you what to do, because you don't go, you just say, they're not on TikTok. I don't need to worry about that, because my ideal customer is not only are they not on TikTok, maybe they are on TikTok, but they're not buying things when they're on TikTok. They're over there for that reason. I think that's the other thing people forget is that, yeah, okay, everyone's on Facebook, but if they're on Facebook in their leisure time and they're not thinking about work or making purchasing decisions or anything like that, then don't talk to them there. Focus on the places where they are, where they're thinking about buying things, where they're thinking about employing your services. That's where you should be. And you know that if you're really inside the brain of your customer.
Okay, so what are some strategies that my listeners can begin to implement or think about or ask themselves to help them figure them out? Because I know there's a lot of my listeners that are lost because they say it all the time. Even my clients are just like, I do not know what my brand is. I don't know why my clients are buying. I don't know what I should say or do.
I think a lot of that comes from, there's this drive that you've got to be perfect, that you've got to, I don't want anyone to see a crack in the veneer. I don't want to see anyone to see this idea that maybe I don't know what I'm doing and it's all a little bit out of control. But the truth is, the more honest you are, the more you share that story with your customers, the better the bond that you have with them. And I would say, if you don't know why your customers are buying, ask them. It's that straightforward. You just have to talk to people and understand what it is they love about you. Because the first thing that we always say, if you want some sort of actionable things that you could go away and do right away to make this, to make your marketing more efficient. We always talk about ruthlessly efficient marketing and focusing on only doing the things that you absolutely have to so that you can get back to doing the things that you have to do, which is running your business. First thing is understand what it is that makes you special. And the way to do that is to talk to your customers, to understand why they recommend you. Go back and look at your reviews, really read them and understand what it is, because the thing that you think makes you amazing might not actually be the thing that your customers love about you. And that is it's the first thing you need to do, because as so many people we talk to, they're like, what makes you special? Well, I do this and I do that and I do this, and this is the way we approach things and it's completely unique and da 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 da. But in truth, there's often some sort of kernel of something in there, and that's why we, the first thing we do when we start working with a new client is say, right, I want to speak to all your customers, I want to speak to your clients, because I don't really care what you think it makes you special. I actually want to know the people that already love you, because what you just need is more of those people.
Gotcha.
So the first thing is talk to your customers and understand what they love about you and what makes you special. And then it's about building out that avatar, building out that ideal customer and understanding how to picture them so that you can really get inside their head, because that's how you then find more of them. And that's how you drill down and focus on only worrying about the places where they are, where they're hanging out, but also where they're thinking about buying something, where they could potentially become a customer. Because that's what you've got to do. You need to be there. But then the last thing, and I think this is the thing that sometimes people get really distracted by and get really stuck in their own head, is then you've got to understand what to say to them. Because it's all well and good. Everyone talks about find your niche, get your ideal customer and all this kind of stuff. But then the last part, which is often the hardest part, is, okay, well, now you've got to write a post on Facebook every day, or you've got to write you need to send out a tweet a couple of times a day. That's a lot of content, and you've got to come up with a way of making that content work for you. And if you're a small business, then that's really hard. That's like a big job. And, plenty of, if you're a big brand, that's happy days. You have a social media department. They can come up with tweets till the cows come home, and that's fabulous. But the truth is, if you're trying to do that every day, coming up with something in the morning when you're trying to do your stock, your inventory, cooking, who knows what else you're trying to get done, but you aren't going to get that done because it's going to get put to one side because it's too hard, and you're going to just get on with something else. So it's just not the right way to approach it. So that's why we always talk about this process of coming up with your what we call subjects of influence, which are the subjects, the big topics that you talk about with authority, that you share, because ultimately those are the things that your customers are really interested in. They're the things that you're really good at. But most importantly, the things you love talking about, because when you talk about something you love, you do it more easily. You share stuff. The content just keeps flowing. And when you've got those ideas, it just makes the content so much easier. And it goes back to that analogy I talked before about having a close friend. Is when you've got those subjects that you know they're interested in, it doesn't make sharing things very difficult. You never feel mucky about it, because that's something we hear that sometimes as well, that people feel like, oh, I don't want to post something on Facebook because I don't want to seem too salesy or too pushy or too whatever else. But if you've got the right person, they should be happy to hear from you. They would be pleased that you've sent them that message because they're interested in the thing that you've got to offer. And I think that's the key. It's, understand who it is you're talking to, understand where they are, and really, really nail what to say to them.
Is it ever possible to successfully go off brand and still come back?
I think it's a brand is, we talk about a brand, and I think it is quite a nebulous thing. Understanding it's important to know where the boundaries of your brand are. What are the values? Where do you go? So you know that when you're pushing the boundaries, because sometimes that's a really valuable thing to do, to step outside the lines and see what happens and see if it pushes it somewhere. Because sometimes that's when you move the needle the most, is when you move things a little bit this way. You have gone a bit outside of your comfort zone, outside of your brand's comfort zone, but there's something really fabulous there, in which case that's been a worthwhile exercise. But you know where you were, and so if it isn't quite working, you can pull it back and you can get back in line. And most of the time, that's not going to be a problem. We talk about, wish to go back on about Superman, but the truth is, you can take Superman off in another direction, and then you can bring him back again, and everyone will go, "Welcome back. We're happy to have you back as the beacon of hope and positivity, and all is forgiven." So,
like with Superman and Lois, which just recently started, they brought Superman back.
Dorky Superman, that's what we want. Happy with that. And that's, and that's the thing. And I think generally that's true of most customers. Now, if you do it consistently with complete flagrant disregard for what your customer wants, like you don't care about them, like you've completely disregarded them. And I think that example you said before about Sears and JCB is, if you do act like you don't care about your customers, you do run a real risk of losing them and not getting the new people you chased after. So you have to be really careful with that. But generally, I think you can make a bit of a play for another angle, but then know that if you don't go too far, you'll always be welcomed back again.
In the case of JCPenney, they're not getting the customers back because they've found other places. I think a lot of them are going to Kohl's and other places now as a result. And Sears, we all know, has fallen apart. I know that my listeners have a fear that if they market wrong, that they're destroyed forever, that there's no hope. And you've just said that that's not really the case. But we've seen it where big brands have really gone by the wayside because they couldn't figure out how to market all of a sudden. They made a pivot and it was really bad. In the case of a number of my listeners, they're afraid to start, James, right? Because, it's the TikTok, it's the Clubhouse, it's the Instagram, it's the this, it's the that, it's the Facebook. Do I put something in the newspaper? Do I go after traditional media? Do I try to go to a podcast? Wait, I don't even have a website. So they're all like, there's this huge portion of the world out there that is just paralyzed. It's like they've been, Spider-Man stuck them in a web and they don't know how to get out.
Well, it's analysis paralysis, isn't it? You look at all of the different options. There's so much to choose from, so just do none of them. And that's it's the blessing and the curse of where we find ourselves today. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, when I started in marketing, God, that was a long time ago, but there wasn't that much choice. There weren't that many different things you could potentially do. And certainly more of them were paid and most of them weren't free. And right now, there's just so much choice. You've got so many different things you could do that it becomes completely overwhelming. And I can totally get why people look at it and go, there's just too much. I'm just not going to do anything. I'm not going to start. But to anybody that says, I don't want to do marketing, you're kidding yourselves, because you already do it. Like, if you've got a business and you have any level of success, when someone comes in and you give them a good service, when you have a client and you give them a good service and you encourage them to tell their friends about the great experience they had, you're doing marketing. You're just doing it on a small and grassroots scale. And all you've got to do is work out how you do 2 times that and gradually increase it. So to anybody that's afraid to start, then I would just say, do something. Pick one thing. Understand. Start off with a strategy. Don't think that, and we hear this all the time as well, that marketing strategy is just for big brands. You don't need to have a marketing strategy if you're running a small business. You just need to worry about getting on with what you're getting on with. But the truth is that a marketing strategy is the most important thing for a small business, because when you have that strategy in place, you don't think about it from a day to day. You've got a piece of paper that you go, right, what do I need to do? Follow these instructions. It's your own, we can go back to the Lego instructions at the start of our conversation. A marketing strategy is your Lego instructions. That's your booklet. You turn the page and you say, right, step 1, I do this, I do that, I do this, and I'm going to have a level of success. And I think that's the thing that people miss. So when you go through that process, try to come up with a strategy, but I'm not talking about a big, 50-page document with an executive summary and all manner of other nonsense that you write this big thing and you go, right, well done, everyone. High fives all around. We've written a marketing strategy. I'll pop it in the drawer down there and we'll get back to work again. I'm talking about a living, working document, an actionable document that's got a list of things you do and you follow it. And if you think they change, you change it and you keep updating it. And that's what a marketing strategy really is. It's not this stuffy old document that you give to the bank manager. That's just not what it's there for.
Can you give an example of a marketing strategy, James? Like give me some ideas of what's on a marketing strategy versus tactics.
So yeah, when we think about a marketing strategy, our focus is on, as we've touched on before, really, a marketing strategy, from my point of view, has got 3 things in it. It's got what makes you special. It's got who your ideal customer is. It has those avatars in it. It talks about exactly who you're trying to talk to. Then it talks about where they are. It talks about the channels that you need to be focused on. And lots of the ones that we work with, I actually deliberately write, I want you to ignore these channels. Don't worry about them. So if someone comes to you and says, hey, you're not really doing much on there, you say, I know I'm not. And that's on purpose. So leave me alone. I don't want a part of it. I don't care how many people there are over there. I don't care what fabulous opportunity is. I've got this amount of hours in my day and I can only do this much work. Because the truth is, if you've got a marketing team of 20 people, you can do all of it. Happy days. But if you've got one person or you've got 2 or 3 people, you can't do it all. So you have to focus on doing something really well. So eliminate the things that you shouldn't be doing and forget about those.
Okay.
It talks about what those subjects are. And I always encourage people to have that top level. I'm not talking about what you would tweet on a day-to-day basis. I'm talking about the big topics that you talk about. So we talk about marketing efficiency a lot. That's something that we are very passionate about and we always talk about. But below that sits lots and lots of individual smaller pieces of content, which we call superhero content, which is the big article that then, so you'll see a theme with all these things. But we call it superhero content, which is a big article that contains lots and lots of data and useful information. And then we have sidekick content, which is a tweet. It's a Instagram post. It's whatever else you want it to be. It's the thing that supports that bigger thing and drives traffic into it. But that's only because that's where our audience is. That's the right way for us to attract them. But for your business, that might not be the right way to do. So again, the strategy has that. It has what makes you special. It has who your customer is. It has what you should be talking about, and the tone as well, and your values and those parts of things, which a lot of that sometimes sits in your business strategy or your brand guidelines. And again, I think I always say there's not a correct way to do this. The correct way to do it is to have some idea of who you're talking to and where to find them. And I just always encourage people to start with who that perfect customer is, because in truth, when you get inside someone's head, a lot of this stuff sort of figures itself out. A lot of that stuff is instinctive, and I think that's often the way to go about it.
You make it sound so simple. And I love that about you, which is why I was drawn to you when you were pitching and talking at Virtual New Media Summit.
Thanks.
And to me, one of the essences of what you talk about and how you help people is getting them to say, don't be afraid, just take a step. It's not about taking 1,000 steps. Take one step, see how it goes. Focus on this for now. And, 2 months from now or a month from now, you can make another step if that's not really getting traction. How, though, does somebody know? And I've never really gotten an answer that kind of makes sense around this, but I think it's it's one of those, it depends kind of answers. But I'm going to ask it of you, James. At what point do you say something's not working or something is really starting to get traction, I need to pursue it? So it's a two-part thing. When do you say, okay, we're not going down this road anymore? And when do we say, let's pick up speed? And I know the answer is it depends, but
I'm going to do everything I can to answer this question without saying it depends.
Okay.
If you ask my business partner, anytime I think, about 3 days is how long I'll wait before I decide something's not working and move on to another thing. But that's not the correct answer. Don't listen to that attitude. The truth is that if you really drill down where you're trying to get to, that's what you want to understand. So if you're running a business and you know where you want to be in the distance, that's your goal. And it's really important to have that idea of a goal, because if you don't set a goal at the start, then you can't decide if something succeeds or fails. So you have to have that in place, because the truth is we've all done that, where we've not set a goal and we've just done a thing, and then you start looking back and go, was that successful? I don't really know, because I didn't really decide where I wanted to be at the end of it anyway. So if you're doing something and you set that goal, that allows you to establish whether the thing you're doing is getting some traction or not. The first and simplest thing to do is if your objective is get more email addresses, get more data, get more likes on Facebook, get more engagement, get more, whatever the metric is that makes your business work, and you do have to decide what that is. You have to decide what your metric is you're going to use to measure success. But if you're moving a bit in the right direction, if you can see that there's some positive change happening, then, again, I just always encourage people, double down on that. See what happens if you pour a little bit of gas on it and then give it a little bit more. If it's advertising, try a little more budget. Does it have an impact? But if it doesn't, don't, I nearly said it then. I'm not going to say it. If it doesn't seem
but
like
it really does
working,
depend. I get that.
It does depend. But if it seems like it's down to the tactic you're using as to how long you should give it before you decide whether it works or not. If it's advertising, you should expect results a little bit quicker. If ultimately your channel to be able to get people in is going to be natural search through SEO or something like that, you're going to have to give it a bit longer, because that takes longer to happen. So you need to understand the channel that you're operating in. If you're going off to build an Instagram audience from scratch, you're going to have to work at that quite hard for quite a long time before you start really getting some traction with it. So you have to understand the channel that your audience is in, and then understand the channel that you're going to use to get to them. And then do a bit of research, understand what success is likely to be and how long it's likely to take for you to get to that point of success. So don't bail out too early, because I think that's a lot of people. And I know you've talked about this before as well, which is people just try a little thing, see if it's working. Oh, that's not working. Forget that. Move on to the next thing. Let's try that over there. And they don't consistently do things. And that's how, you build an audience. Podcasting is a classic example. You build an audience by turning up every week, by doing it consistently, by constantly providing the same thing. It's the same with blogs. It's the same with everything. You have to keep doing it, because people want to know you're there, and they're going to keep coming back gradually. But again, it's down to the channel you're using, I think, is the answer. Was that an answer?
We're almost at an hour, and I could talk to you for another hour easily, James. I mean, we didn't even talk about advertising, and whether when you decide to do that, and Facebook ads, and this and that, LinkedIn and events and whatever, and that we could go down a whole nother road.
Yeah, we could do. We could do for a couple more hours, I reckon, if we could.
Yeah, easily. But because marketing and that whole idea of growing your business is such a beautiful topic, which is why I love having people like yourself on the show. And, we're talking about Snyder. They just released his uncut Justice League, right? I really have no urge to see it, no matter how much they've marketed at it and that they accidentally leaked it during the Tom and Jerry because somebody hit some wrong thing. I personally don't think that was wrong. I think it was a tease. It got them PR and whatever. But I love what you were talking about around, find what's for you and your clients and be authentic and honest. And that's who I see you are in every interaction we've had. And I'm a huge fan of everything you have behind you as well. We could probably I think maybe I need to have you and Mark Asquith and I on the show, and we'll just do a whole episode.
Just a geeking out episode.
Yeah, just talking Green Lantern, Star Wars, Star Trek, superheroes, Marvel, DC. I think we could have a blast.
Yeah, I'm in.
Okay, cool. Because Mark said he wants to do one with me too. So we have to make that happen. I want to make sure people can find you, James, because you have so much valuable information. I know you write on Medium. You have stuff on your website. You have different courses. And even if somebody's US versus UK, I believe that these concepts translate.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think that's something that we've really felt is that it's if this period of time has taught us anything, it's that the borders don't really matter. We've all the whole planet's gone through the same thing, and the principles of marketing. Yeah, people are different and buying habits are different, but that's part of knowing your customer is know how they buy things and where they buy things and whether they're impulse driven or logical and stuff like that. So I think there's what works in England works in the US. It's all similar stuff, and
might be a different word. I was there for 6 weeks doing working on a project back when I worked at Pitney Bowes, and I said something about I just bought this great pair of pants to the guys I was working with, and they just turned bright red and they looked at me and they said, "Did you mean trousers or pants?" Trousers. And I'm like, "Well, they're the same thing." And they're like, "Not in England."
No.
Pants are underwear, I gather.
I think it's getting more, like a lot of words like that, they become more interchangeable as time goes by. My kids say pants when they're talking about trousers.
But I was like, oh my gosh, no, I don't mean underwear.
Yeah, I've only just met you, but let me tell you about my pants.
Yeah, I'll tell you about my pants. Okay, so tell people how they can find you and all that wonderful stuff. Yeah,
so I would, encourage anyone to have a look at 33%.co.uk. That's our website. It's all letters, no numbers. But if you go to 33%.co.uk/customer, then we've got an ebook on there, which is really all about getting ahead into the ideal customer. It takes you through the process of really going through the detail of their needs, their desires, all the good stuff that you need to figure out, but it's all in service of getting in their head, because that's the thing. I just feel passionately that that's the turnkey moment when you get inside their head, that a lot of the other stuff starts to make an enormous amount of sense. So, if you do one thing, I would love it if you check that out, because I think it would have great value to anybody that's listening.
Is that the correct site?
It's absolutely correct. That is absolutely right. Look
Not bad.
That is professional. You say graphics don't matter, but this is some professional stuff.
Okay. So for those watching video, it's right on your screen right now. For those listening to the audio only portion of this podcast, have fun. Go watch us live, and you could see what we're talking about James has behind him. Go watch the video on any of my video platforms. But I'm going to put it out there again. His website is 33%, and that's THIRTY, the word 3%.co.uk/customer. So don't go the number 3, and the percent sign. It's write out the word 33%.co.uk. And you can get to James Adam and that wonderful ebook that they've got for you. So James, thank you so much for being here with me today. Last thought you want to leave my listeners with?
Well, likewise, thank you very much for having me. It's been a real pleasure. I love chatting to you about this. So, like you said, we could chat for hours. But I think if I leave you with one final thought, it would be: don't let the world, people, anyone tell you that marketing is complicated or is too complicated for you to get involved in. I think, as Laura said before, take the first step. That's all you've got to do. Is every journey starts with the first step. That's what you've got to do. Just do something. Try and get in the head of who that person is you're talking to and think of them like they're your best friend, and don't get overwhelmed by the complexity of it, because it really isn't rocket science. If you follow that process, you will be able to achieve great success with marketing in a really, really small amount of time.
Great. Thank you so much for being. This is awesome. I can't wait to set that other show up where we just
yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
And don't forget what we talked about before the show started. You have to watch the movie Tomorrowland on Disney.
That's this weekend. It's on the list without a doubt.
And then you got to tell me what you think about it.
Will do.
All right. Hang on, and I'll be right back to you. All right, everybody. I just had James Adam on the show from 33%. And I loved our conversation today about marketing, about how you figure out what's the right marketing for you and for your clients, and how not to get distracted by what everybody else is telling you to do. You need to find what works for you. What is your strategy? Don't feel like you have to be everything to everybody. Just pick one thing, start there, see how it goes. Give yourself some time. There's so many great nuggets from today's episode. I would love for you to share on social media or email me, whatever you want to do. What was your nugget that you took away with? Tag James and I on some of your marketing efforts. Let us see what you're doing. Let us see what you've learned from today. And if you have other questions, you can reach out to James. You can reach out to me, because we're always here for you. Because at the end of the day, what I've always learned, and what I say to you every week, everybody, is at the end of the day, the right questions can change your life. So what are you asking today? Have a great day, everyone.
You've been listening to It's All About the Questions, starring Laura Stewart. Connect with Laura at it'sallaboutthequestions.com and download a free workbook that will help you ask better questions starting today.